Headphones on for the best experience in today's video. Queen Benerib was a consort of ancient Egypt of the First Dynasty. Title 1. Benerib, the matriarch behind Egypt's First Dynasty. Peace Benerib emerged at the dawn of Egypt's dynastic age during the early dynastic period around 3100 BCE. Her name, interpreted as Sweet of Heart, appears alongside King Aha's in tomb inscriptions at Abydos, linking her directly to the establishment of the First Dynasty. As the consort of Aha, widely regarded as Menes, the unifier of Upper and Lower Egypt, Benerib stood at the threshold of Egypt's transformation from tribal polities into a centralized state. The Archaic period was a time of great institutional formation. Writing was standardized, kingship was sacralized, and complex rituals began anchoring the state. Benerib's significance is not merely due to her status as queen consort, but because she existed within this pivotal shift in civilization. Her presence in royal tombs and on commemorative artifacts underscores her role in legitimizing dynastic authority. The association of her name with mortuary complexes implies she received cultic reverence, reserved only for elites who contributed to dynastic perpetuity. Despite the patriarchal nature of pharaonic power, queens during the First Dynasty were central to the bloodline's purity and the divine continuity of kingship. The political marriages of this era were strategic, often binding competing regional elites through kinship. As Aha consolidated power, Benerib likely functioned as a linchpin between Upper Egyptian nobility and Lower Egyptian priesthoods. Archaeological records from el-Kab in Abydos show Benerib had her own tomb, B14, near that of Aha. This spatial proximity confirms her elite status. Tomb goods, including ivory tags and jars, indicate ritual and economic control. Such burial treatment suggests she was not a mere concubine, but a figure of institutional importance. Her name, unlike others such as Neithotep, does not carry overt divine iconography. Yet the political symbolism of her interment implies her name carried spiritual resonance. The absence of a formal title like King's Wife or Mother of the King in inscriptions is not unusual for the period. Such titles became standard only in later dynasties. Nevertheless, the survival of her name amidst a sparse archaeological record testifies to her historical weight. Title 2. The role of Benerib in dynastic consolidation. Benerib's role was not ornamental. Queens in the First Dynasty often governed temple estates and oversaw the administration of cult practices tied to fertility, rebirth, and cosmic order. Concepts embedded in the ideology of kingship. Benerib, as the likely principal wife of Aha, would have coordinated offerings, landholdings, and temple personnel. This administrative clout made her an active agent in the king's policy of centralization. The unification of Egypt demanded more than military might. It required ideological harmonization. The queen's presence in royal propaganda ensured that the king's divine authority permeated both domestic and religious spheres. By controlling access to royal offspring and acting as the intermediary between court and cult, Benerib anchored the king's legitimacy through her body, womb, and ritual station. Seal impressions and ivory labels bearing Benerib's name reflect bureaucratic sophistication. These tags were used to record economic transactions, storage inventory, and tax tribute, evidence of a complex state apparatus already emerging. If Benerib had jurisdiction over specific domains, her name would appear on labels documenting commodity flows. Thus, her participation in the logistics of state economy is plausible and likely. Furthermore, the spatial arrangement of tombs in Abydos suggests deliberate urban planning guided by religious and cosmological design. Tomb B14, attributed to Benerib, was strategically placed to mirror the sacred geography of Duat, the afterlife. This spatial theology reflects her elevated status. A queen buried in the sacred necropolis of the unifiers was more than a consort. She was an architect of spiritual statehood. Later traditions, including the cult of Hathor and Isis, absorbed early precedents set by queens like Benerib. Their embodiment of fertility, mourning, and kingship sanctity trace back to proto-royal figures whose rituals shaped Egypt's metaphysical identity. The integration of Benerib into mortuary culture shows she was part of this sacred lineage. Title 3. Legacy and Echoes of Benerib in the Foundations of Greatness. While male figures dominate inscriptions and statuary, the architecture of Egypt's First Dynasty greatness cannot be understood without queens like Benerib. She was among the first to define the queenly role as not just reproductive, but sacerdotal and economic. Her life intersected governance, ritual, and memory in foundational ways. Benerib's existence during a time when writing was still forming means that most of her biography is gleaned from indirect material culture. But what survives tells a story of elite integration, where the queen was not subordinate, but parallel to the king in spiritual function. In the theology of kingship, the king was Horus, but the queen aligned with the goddesses who birthed or mourned him. This symbolic duality made her indispensable. The state required continuity, and continuity required sanctified lineage. Benerib likely gave birth to heirs or contributed to the grooming of successors. Even if she bore no king, her station would have helped define the hierarchy of royal women, setting the precedent for future great wives of the pharaohs. More than a name etched in ivory, Benerib's legacy is carved into the DNA of Egyptian statecraft. Her tomb, her artifacts, and her role in ritual economies mark her as a silent architect of Egypt's dynastic durability. Her presence in Abydos positioned her at the junction of the physical and spiritual, of mortality and divine rebirth. The greatness established in Egypt's First Dynasty came not from force alone, but from structured wisdom. The sacral authority of queens like Benerib wove religious truth into political power, sustaining the illusion and reality of divine kingship for millennia to follow. Conclusion: echoes of self-knowledge and enduring wisdom. In remembering Benerib, we uncover the quiet fortitude that anchored civilization. Her story is not loud but lasting, not flamboyant but foundational. She exemplifies how greatness is forged through sacred duty, strategic presence, and cultural clarity. Her legacy is a mirror. In it we see that history's endurance depends on unseen architects. In a world where names fade but structures endure, Benerib is an eternal signal that true power lies in alignment with divine order. To know her is to reclaim a lineage of wisdom and sovereignty. To remember Benerib is to remember that greatness is not an act, but a state of being, one rooted in purpose, honor, and the unwavering rhythm of cosmic truth.